What if I told you that one of the most powerful blood sugar lowering tools on the planet isn't sitting in your medicine cabinet? It's sitting in your refrigerator. And what if the very vegetable researchers stumbled onto by accident lowered glucose in a way so similar to a leading diabetes drug that it stunned the scientist who found it? I'm Dr. Arthur Clark, and on this channel, I spend my time translating real medical research into plain language for people who actually have to live with their numbers. Because here's the truth that doesn't get said enough. What's on your plate can move your blood sugar in the same week, sometimes the same day, that you change it. Before we go further, do me a favor. Comment your age below and tell me one vegetable you already eat most weeks. I read these, and they tell me who I'm really talking to. Let me anchor this in evidence right away. In 2010, researchers publishing in the British Medical Journal pooled 6 large studies and found that people who ate the most green leafy vegetables had a 14% lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes than those who ate the least. 14% from a salad bowl. And that was just the beginning of what the research now shows. So here's my promise to you. Today, I'll walk you through the 5 most powerful blood sugar lowering vegetables backed by human trials, ranked from foundational to genuinely life-altering. Number 5 is where everyone should start. But number 1? Number 1 is the vegetable scientists chose out of thousands of compounds because its effect mirrored a frontline medication, and most people have never been told. Do not skip it. Let's begin. Let's begin with number 5. Leafy greens, spinach, kale, Swiss chard. Here's the simple mechanism. Leafy greens are mostly water and fiber, with almost no usable carbohydrate. When you eat them alongside a meal, that fiber forms a kind of gel in your gut that physically slows how fast sugar is released into your blood. Instead of a spike, you get a gentle rise. On top of that, greens are loaded with magnesium, a mineral your cells need to respond properly to insulin, the hormone that ushers sugar out of your blood and into your cells. The evidence is strong. That 2010 British Medical Journal meta-analysis found a 14% reduction in type 2 diabetes risk for the highest leafy green eaters. A separate 2014 analysis in BMJ Open sharpened the picture. Even a small bump, about a fifth of a serving more per day, was tied to roughly a 13% lower risk. Small, repeated choices, compounding over time. Picture a stand-in for the thousands of people in those studies. A 62-year-old who simply added a fistful of spinach to lunch and dinner most days. No new pills, no gym membership, just a quiet, consistent shift on the plate. The kind of change that nudged risk downward across entire populations. Now, age matters here. After about 50, your muscle mass starts to slip. And muscle is where most of your blood sugar gets stored. Less muscle means glucose has fewer places to go, so it lingers in the blood. Magnesium-rich greens help your remaining muscle stay insulin sensitive, which is exactly why this becomes more important as you get older, not less. Implementation costs you nothing extra. Add a handful of any leafy green to one meal you already eat today. Frozen spinach works just as well as fresh and costs less. You don't have to like salad. Wilt it into eggs, soup, or rice at the end of cooking. And here's your first synergy tip. Greens pair beautifully with number 4 on this list. Eaten together, the fiber from both slows your meal's sugar release even further, a 1-2 punch. But leafy greens are the foundation. What comes next actually drove blood sugar down in a controlled trial, and it's a vegetable most people boil the life out of. Stay with me. Cut open an okra pod, and you'll see it. That slippery, almost slimy texture people either love or hate. That slime is soluble fiber and a substance called mucilage, and it is the whole point. In your digestive tract, it traps sugar and slows its absorption, blunting the after-meal spike. Researchers also believe compounds in okra help your cells take up glucose more efficiently. This is where okra earns its spot, because the human data is direct. A 2025 systematic review and meta-analysis pooled 6 randomized controlled trials and found okra supplementation lowered fasting blood glucose by about 21.7 milligrams per deciliter, and HbA1c, your 3-month blood sugar average, by 0.42% compared to placebo. To put that in perspective, a fall of nearly 22 points in fasting glucose is the kind of shift that genuinely changes how a number reads on a meter. In one randomized trial of 120 people with type 2 diabetes, published in 2022, okra was tested right alongside participants' usual medications and still moved their glucose markers. Think of the typical participant in those trials, someone in their 60s, already on a glucose-lowering pill, who added okra and saw their morning fasting number ease down over the weeks, not as a replacement for treatment, but stacked on top of it. Why does this matter more with age? After 60, the after-meal glucose spike tends to get sharper and last longer because aging slows insulin's response. Okra's mucilage flattens exactly that spike, the part of the day that quietly does the most damage to nerves and vessels. To use it at near zero cost, slice a few pods and add them to a stew, curry, or stir-fry. The trick: keep the heat moderate and don't overcook, so you preserve that fiber-rich texture rather than destroying it. Synergy tip: okra's soluble fiber compounds with the leafy greens from number 5. Different fibers, same direction. Both slowing sugar's path into your blood. Powerful. But the next vegetable was tested head-to-head against an actual diabetes medication, and the results raised eyebrows. Let's keep climbing. Bitter melon has been used in traditional medicine across Asia and Africa for centuries, and modern science has started to explain why. It contains compounds that behave a little like insulin itself, and others that appear to help your muscle cells pull sugar out of the blood. In plain terms, it acts on more than one pathway at once. The trials are the reason it ranks this high. In one randomized study summarized by the National Health Research Institutes, a water-based bitter melon extract improved fasting blood glucose by about 13.7% over 3 months. A 2020 randomized, placebo-controlled trial in complementary therapies in medicine, following 90 people with type 2 diabetes, found that fasting glucose dropped significantly in the bitter melon group over 12 weeks. And in a landmark 2011 trial, published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology, researchers compared bitter melon directly against metformin in newly diagnosed patients, putting a vegetable in the same conversation as a frontline drug. Imagine a composite of those trial volunteers: a 58-year-old recently diagnosed, anxious about starting medication, who added bitter melon under medical supervision and watched their fasting number begin to settle. Now, a serious age note, and please hear this one. After 65, kidney and liver function naturally decline, and bitter melon is potent. It is not recommended in pregnancy, in liver disease, or for anyone already prone to low blood sugar, because combined with your medication, it can push glucose too low. This is exactly the kind of food you start only after talking to your own doctor. To try it cheaply, it's sold fresh in many South Asian and Asian grocery stores. Salting and rinsing the slices before cooking tames the bitterness. Synergy tip: bitter melon's insulin-like action pairs with the fiber foods already mentioned. The fiber slows the sugar coming in, while bitter melon helps clear what's already there. Strong medicine from a vegetable. But number 2 is the one nearly every diabetes guideline already recommends, and most people still don't eat enough of it. Technically, the workhorse of the plant world, legumes do something almost no other food does this well. They deliver carbohydrates so slowly that your blood sugar barely notices. They're packed with soluble fiber and resistant starch, a starch that resists digestion, feeding your gut bacteria instead of spiking your glucose. They also produce what scientists call the second meal effect. Beans at lunch can steady your blood sugar even at dinner. The headline trial is hard to argue with. In 2012, Dr. David Jenkins and colleagues at the University of Toronto published a randomized controlled trial in the Archives of Internal Medicine. They had 121 people with type 2 diabetes at least 1 cup of legumes a day for 3 months. The result? HbA1c dropped by 0.5 percentage points, and, bonus, systolic blood pressure fell by about 4.5 millimeters of mercury, cutting their estimated heart disease risk too. A half point of HbA1c from beans alone is a meaningful, drug-comparable move for a food you can buy for pennies. Picture the typical person in that Toronto study. A 67-year-old swapping some of their white rice or bread for a cup of lentils each day. Not eating less, just eating smarter. And seeing both their sugar and their blood pressure ease over a single season. Age context. After 60, heart disease becomes a #1 threat for people with diabetes. Legumes are rare and hitting both targets at once, glucose and blood pressure, which is why they matter more in your later decades. Zero-cost implementation. Dried or canned beans are among the cheapest foods in any store. Rinse canned ones to cut the sodium. Start with half a cup added to a meal you already make. Synergy tip. Combine legumes with leafy greens from number 5. A lentil and spinach bowl stacks 2 fibers and a dose of magnesium in one cheap, filling meal. So that's the vegetable the guidelines already love. But number 1? Number 1 wasn't chosen by tradition. It was chosen by a computer scanning thousands of compounds. And it changed how scientists think about food and diabetes. Here's the story that earns broccoli the top spot. A team at the Lund University Diabetes Center in Sweden mapped the genetic signature of type 2 diabetes, then screened thousands of compounds to find one that could reverse it. The winner wasn't a drug. It was sulforaphane, a natural compound concentrated in broccoli, broccoli sprouts, and other cruciferous vegetables like cabbage and Brussels sprouts. What makes it remarkable is the mechanism. In type 2 diabetes, the liver overproduces sugar. It keeps dumping glucose into your blood, even when you haven't eaten. Sulforaphane switches down that overactive sugar production. And here's the striking part. The researchers reported it did so by a magnitude similar to metformin, the most prescribed diabetes drug in the world, but through a different pathway. The human proof came in 2017, published in Science Translational Medicine. The team gave 97 patients with type 2 diabetes concentrated broccoli sprout extract daily for 12 weeks. In the obese patients with poorly controlled diabetes, it significantly reduced fasting blood glucose and HbA1c versus placebo. A 2025 follow-up from the University of Gothenburg in Nature Microbiology extended the work into prediabetes, finding measurable fasting glucose reductions there too. This matters enormously because roughly 15% of people with type 2 diabetes can't take metformin due to kidney problems, and they need other options. Picture a composite of those Swedish trial patients. A 64-year-old whose fasting numbers wouldn't budge, who added a daily dose of concentrated broccoli sprouts, and finally saw that stubborn morning reading come down. Age note. Liver overproduction of glucose tends to worsen with age, which is the exact problem sulforaphane targets, making it especially relevant after 60. Implementation. Near free. Eat broccoli regularly and add broccoli sprouts when you can. They're far richer in sulforaphane. Lightly steam rather than boil. Overcooking destroys the compound. Adding a pinch of mustard powder to cooked broccoli actually reactivates sulforaphane. Synergy tip. Pair broccoli with the legumes from number 2. Sulforaphane works on your liver's output, while legumes slow the sugar coming in. That's both ends of the equation, covered by 2 cheap vegetables. So, let's bring it home. Number 5. Leafy greens, your fiber and magnesium foundation, tied to a 14% lower diabetes risk. Number 4. Okra. Its soluble fiber dropped fasting glucose by nearly 22 points in pooled trials. Number 3. Bitter melon. An insulin-like vegetable strong enough to be tested against metformin, so respect its power. Number 2. Legumes. A half-point HbA1c drop and lower blood pressure, all for pennies. And number 1. Broccoli and its cruciferous cousins, the sulforaphane that science chose to rival a frontline drug. Here's the message I want you to carry out of this video. Improvement is possible at any age. 60, 70, 80. Your body still responds to what you feed it. The research doesn't have an age limit, and neither do you. Now I want to hear from you. Which one are you starting first? And what's your single biggest challenge in eating better? Tell me in the comments. I read them, and your answer might shape my next video. If this helped you see your plate differently, do 3 quick things. Hit like so more people find it. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And share it with someone you love who's managing their blood sugar. You can't change your diagnosis, but starting with your very next meal, you can absolutely change your direction. One honest reminder, these foods are powerful, And that's exactly why you should talk with your doctor before big changes, especially if you take glucose-lowering medication, because together they can drive your sugar too low.